You're listening to the Sanditon Chronicles, where we talk all things Sanditon and Sanditon adjacent. Come along with us as we dissect all of your favorite characters, scenes, and dialogue. We have so much to tell you.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Sanditon Chronicles. I'm Maureen.
And I'm Janice.
And we are back tonight with our comprehensive view of seasons 1 through 3. Now we know that we've talked breakdowns of characters, we've talked breakdowns of relationships, we've even talked episode recaps and our thoughts on each season from season to season, but we have not talked overall about seasons 1 through 3. So that's what we're going to tackle tonight. We're going to talk about character arcs, we're going to talk about story arcs, and we're going to kind of talk about whether or not we thought they were successful in what they were trying to do, kind of give it an overall grade, that sort of thing. So that's where we're going to take you tonight. So we hope that you'll enjoy listening on with us. Who should we start with? Let's start with Charlotte.
Oh, there's a good idea.
Yeah, let's start with the main right off the
the first character we were introduced to.
Yes, right off the jump. Let's go there. Well, wasn't Tom and Mary the first characters we were introduced to?
Well, in terms of they sort of showed up at the same time, but we see her waiting to shoot that rabbit before we really. Well, we see them in the carriage, jingling around. But yeah, they anyway. But we know the story is really told through Charlotte's eyes.
Everything is almost.
Yeah.
So I think we see her at first. She's a character who's really, really developed a lot of layers, I think. And at first we kind of see her as this
young lady.
Yes, but I hesitate to say naive. She was naive by circumstance, but she was open to a lot of things. So she was naive, but I hate to call her that because as you watch her in Sanditon, she had great ideas. She was really open to new things. She was excited about new things. She wasn't closed off to things. There are some things that I think, like with Georgiana and doing the letter thing between her and Otis, she shouldn't have done that. If she had thought about it harder, if she was more seasoned, she probably wouldn't have done that. And in fact, in season 3, we still see her making some of those same mistakes, like with Edward and Augusta, when Augusta is telling her all about the sky and she's giving her advice. Still, there's that just blind, like, I trust your judgment. No, you should be more seasoned and remember who she is. So there's that remains in her a little bit, but we see her grow so much from that first season.
I think what I would say is that she was sheltered to begin with. And then she matured a lot by events and circumstances and the people she was around, but also she always wanted to see the best in people, and that's what she did with Augusta. That's what she really did with everybody until it was proven, and until it was proven to her she couldn't trust someone.
Yeah,
which was the case with Lennox and with Charles.
Oh, Charles Lockhart.
Yeah, Lockhart. All of a sudden, I couldn't think of his name. But anyway, and she didn't have as close of interaction with Edward to know what all he had done. He just knew he had a bad reputation. She wasn't in on what he did to Esther or Clara, or
she knew what Clara told her. That was it.
Right, and that was really early on. Really early on. I mean, think what Esther told her about Sydney, which wasn't really true. I mean, so she wanted to, I think she really genuinely wanted to see the best in people.
She did, yeah. And that's the other thing too, is that I don't know that she fully agreed with Clara. Maybe she didn't fully understand what Clara was saying.
Oh, she was too naive at that point.
But she still had a healthy dose of, okay, I'm going to be cautious around you now. And you see that first interaction that she had with Edward, where she was kind of ill at ease around him. And then having Clara, seeing what she saw, and then having Clara say what she said, and then Edward after that trying to convince her nothing was wrong. She had the instincts right, where she could kind of tell, I don't know if I should trust this person. So she didn't know for sure, but she does have that throughout, where she kind of trusted her instincts and they improved over time.
Right. And even before she had that conversation with Clara, think about the conversation she had with Lady Denham, where they're walking along the path along the cliffs, and she's saying, well, yes, he'll want to,
Flirt and
right. But basically he was going to sow his wild oats is what she was implying.
mm-hmm.
And
But he'll never marry you.
yeah. So he won't, because he needs the money.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So she did go through various phases. She was a very good friend to her friends.
Mm-hmm.
She helped. It was incredible about helping people in times of crisis. I mean, we see in the first season where she really helps. Well, she helps Georgiana too, but she helps Old Stringer when he's hurt. And she's tries to protect Georgiana to a large extent. Part of it is just her naive understanding of what's going on.
Yeah.
Like she didn't know what she didn't know. She didn't know that somebody could get married without the guardian's consent. She didn't know that until Sydney was kind of forced to tell her that.
Yeah.
In carriage. And she always, she was just really, really helpful to people. And she obviously in the third season, when she just was right there with Georgiana the whole time she went through that trial and had to prove that she was the true heir. Even before that, in season 2, when she was helping the girls out, and trying to help some life come back into that family, into that house. So yeah, I think that's why we like her so much. And in the end, she ends up as a school teacher, as running a school, which of course we love that.
Yeah. And I think one thing that I do appreciate about her character is with Sydney, right, when they have that interaction on the street, I think we talked about this last week, where she's upset with him and she's just saying all these things to him. And then it's the one, I think it's after what happened with Old Stringer. And she says, and now you'll tell me that I'm a young woman. And I'm paraphrasing hugely, something along the lines of, and now you're going to tell me that I am just a young woman and I have no idea what I'm talking about. And to just shut my mouth.
And you don't care what I have to say.
Yeah. And so she still goes off. Like she just tells him what's on her mind. In season 2, we still see her do that, but it's a little more subdued now, where she's talking to her employer and she's recognizing, okay, I'm in a different sort of situation. I will always be me. I will still speak my mind, but I'm still going to be a little more careful about how I do it now. I'm not just going to vomit words all over this person because I have it in me to say it. And she even says at one point to Colburn, if I may. So she's letting it out gently. In season 3, we see a reversal of that almost.
Well, yes,
because
and no.
She's with Ralph. Well, just when she's with Ralph, when she's around other people, she's more introverted because of that. But even that shows a kind of, she's trying to morph herself into the wife that she thinks Ralph wants, I think.
Oh, yeah, that could be. Or she is, because she has accepted that she's going to get married to him. Yeah. I think she has restrained herself much more and isn't, just so outrightly defiant. Yeah. So yeah, it's interesting. The character changes.
And even in that though, like when Ralph wants her to go home, I need to stay here for Georgiana. At the end of Georgiana's party, when Augusta has eloped and the Colburns come in there and say, you must help, I will do this one thing for them and then I will return. It's the last thing I'll do. So she still is firm in herself. And that's what I like about her, that though season 2 to season 3, even season 1 to season 2, her character seems starkly different because we see this happy, this interested, this vivacious girl who's soaking up as much as she can about the world. Season 2, we see this girl who's touched by grief and heartbreak, and she's a little more walled off.
She's had a big fall from innocence.
Exactly. And then in season 3, we kind of get a mix of the season 1 character and the season 2 character. But it's something that she has learned to put on. Like she'll take it on and off as she sees there's a need for it. So she's learned to kind of master herself a little bit more in season 3, I think.
And certainly compared to how she did speak to Lady Denham and stuff early on. Yeah. She's matured for sure.
Yeah.
you know, that's what happens in life is we go through these things, and that's how we develop some maturity. If nothing ever happened to you, if you never had any experiences, you know, how would you mature?
Yes. And I think it's really helped her understand herself
Right.
quite a bit more than she did in the beginning.
Yeah. So do you want to go on to Crystal?
Yeah. Georgiana?
Wait,
wait, who's Crystal?
Yeah, Georgiana, sorry.
We just started calling them by their real names today. Sanditon is over. They are now back to their real names.
She's another one that I think she maintains her character throughout, but she does mature as well. I mean, she started out as the spoiled, bratty teenager.
Immature, yeah.
Yeah. And then as she goes through the experiences she goes through, I mean, being captured, kidnapped in season 1, but rescued, that has an effect on her. And then in season 2, when she's having all these people trying to marry her, you know, and what she goes through with all of that. And then in Charles Lockhart, who shows her all this attention and turns out to say he had ulterior motives is the greatest understatement. And it's interesting that Sydney recognized or was concerned that Otis had ulterior motives. Yeah. He wasn't around to notice what Charles Lockhart was about.
Yeah.
And
but he knew Charles Lockhart from Antigua, which is why he sent the letter of warning.
Right, but it just didn't get there early enough. I mean, he was still trying to protect her. He found out what had happened, so he didn't quit his
guardianship.
He died. He didn't quit his guardianship. Yeah, and then, but there wasn't anybody. Her other guardians weren't aware enough to realize what might be going on with him. You know, although I will say this, Mary was very wary. You know, she was very wary. So, and I think that Charlotte was to some extent, but, and then of course, in season 3, definitely more mature. At least she kind of knows what she wants. She's more independent. And so she obviously has to fight to keep her estate. And she kept her character in the sense that she was still pretty, woe is me, you know, and I'm in this situation and how do I get out of it? And her solution was to bring the man who had saved her from in court, you know, to bring Samuel in and try and get him to order him to solve her problem of having people leave her alone. You know what I'm talking about? And then he finally said, well, the only thing I see is you're going to have to marry, or this is going to keep happening. So her solution, of course, was to become engaged to a man that really wasn't for her. Yeah. I was just going to say, and then her mother, she finds her mother. She comes into her life and she helps her go back to her true love, which is Otis. Yeah. So, interesting to see her journey.
And I think at the end of season 1, I remember you and I talking about how we hope that she has matured some in season 2, because even after the heartbreak of, like, we see how the heartbreak altered Charlotte's character. It made her more subdued. It made her look at the world in a different light.
Right.
Initially for Georgiana, when we see at the end of season 1, her heartbreak has not caused her to do that necessarily. She's still just as angry at Sydney because she has been hurt. So she assumes that there is no other option for women but to be hurt, because if it happened to her, well, it's going to happen to you. And that's kind of what she tells Charlotte when she comes in there and says, you know, Sydney said this stuff. I don't know what it means. But then in season 2, I was glad to see her more mature, obviously, but she has more substance in season 2. True. It wasn't just about meeting this man or I hate it here. Take me out of here. I don't like it. And I'm not downgrading that she felt isolated and alone. I'm not downgrading that, but her attitude was crap. In season 2, she decided, you know what? I'm here. I'm going to fight for something that's good. She started the sugar boycott. She's fighting for something that she believes in. She's digging her hands into things that truly matter to her. And I think what she liked about Lockhart was in the midst of all these suitors who were vying for her hand, almost tripping over themselves, Lockhart showed almost zero interest. Well, I mean, he showed interest, but in a different way. He had a very laissez-faire attitude. None of this matters. Everything's a joke to me. I don't need your money. I don't want your money. And that's why she liked him, because it was, I don't even know that I wouldn't even say that she fully gave herself over to love for him. I think she was refreshed in the midst of all these suitors fawning over her that this guy wasn't the same way.
Right. And also it doesn't hurt that Arthur was really charmed by Lockhart and helped to push her in that way.
Exactly.
But their relationship really matures over the course of the series.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Mm-hmm.
And I think in season 3, much like Charlotte, Georgiana has understood how to mask things in herself. Right. She understands herself significantly more, because that's what Harry is. He's a mask. He is some way that she can throw a blanket over herself, be completely covered. No one can get in. No one can hurt her. She's safe from this. But what she has to do in that is alter herself. And you can see bit by bit as it goes on, she doesn't really enjoy the life that she's living. These parties on the beach, the champagne with all his friends, she doesn't particularly enjoy it, but she's putting on a show so that no one can actually see to hurt her anymore. And it's because she understands where her pressure points are now. She understands herself better.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's just such a blessing to have her get her happily ever after.
Yes.
We've always been concerned about Charlotte's, or the fandom has, but it's great to see Georgiana get that. And it was also interesting too that it was really Otis that exposed her and Charlotte to the real world, you know, in terms of slavery and all of that they'd both been protected from in a lot of ways. I mean, yes, Georgiana had experienced being treated poorly because of her race. Yeah. But she also got treated pretty well just because of her money.
Yeah.
And but I think because of what she learned from Otis, that's what led her to the sugar boycott. And how appropriate then she comes back to him, or he comes back into her life.
Yeah.
In the 3rd episode. I love that part of the story for sure.
Absolutely. It's something that, I mean, she was exposed to little by little on her dad's plantation. I mean, he sold off all of his slaves. Obviously, her mother was one of them at some point. But in Otis, he taught her what was really important to fight for. He taught her how she was affected, even though she wasn't a slave directly. It still affected her. It still colored her, no pun intended there, but it still colored her world.
Yeah.
And that was good to see. I'm glad that her character went from where it was to where it ended, because I enjoyed her in the 2nd and 3rd season. I could not stand her in the 1st season, but I enjoyed her in the 2nd and 3rd.
Yeah, that's right. So, who do you want to talk about next? Chris Marshall or Kate? Tom Parker or Mary Parker? I keep using the actors' names.
Let's go into those two together, because I don't think Mary in Essentials, I think she's the one character who hasn't really changed. I mean, when we see her, she's already a mother of 4, although that changes later. But she is a mother.
One child just disappears. That's all.
Because he's somewhere floating in the house. It's fine. He's fine. But she's a mother of 4. She's been married for a while. She's situated substantially in this town. Her life is set. She knows who she is at this point, and she maintains this character throughout. She's a steady constant in this show, I think, in a good way. We see her in the 1st season saying, Tom, I know something's not right with you. I know something's not right. I know you won't tell me what it is. And when she finds out, she is who Mary is. And she says, no, I can't. You've done something horrible here. This is not who we are. In season 2, we see her remind him of that, of remember this. No, we're going to do this together now. We're doing this together now. Season 3, he goes to her for advice because she maintains this same attitude of caring for people, knowing who she is, being a constant, and being set in everything that is in her life.
I just think she becomes more confident and stronger in herself as the 3 seasons go on.
I would agree with that. She is more, her voice comes out more, like she's not in season 1. She was saying, I know something's wrong, but she didn't push it.
Right.
By season 2 and 3, she's saying, no, you're gonna fix this, or you're gonna tell me.
Right. She was very direct about it. And Tom, for his part, was pretty darn stupid in the first season.
Yes.
And he learned quite a bit from that. And he was much better in the second and third seasons. He went through his moments, but in the second season, once he understood this situation, he stood up to Lennox. I mean, it helps that Arthur was such a support to him. Arthur was such a wonderful supporting character, both to Georgiana and to Tom and Mary, really, both of them, and to some extent Charlotte, but he was just more of a friend to Charlotte, where he was really a support to the other three.
Yeah.
And he blossoms too. He goes from being a hypochondriac to wanting to really help solve problems, and does solve some problems in the second season, is very supportive of helping Tom be the man he should be. And in the third season, he is, very supportive of what's going on in the town, and of Georgiana and what she's going through. And he goes through his own heartache.
Yeah. Oh, we're talking about Arthur.
Arthur, I was talking about then.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Tom, his heartache's more financial.
Well, I think what I liked about his character, and a lot of people don't agree with me. It's not that a lot of people don't. When I say a lot, I mean like 1 or 2 comments here and there. But some people don't agree with how he has matured and he's progressed because of the gambling in season 2. But in season 1, he was so overwhelmed and over his head that he didn't enjoy the position he was in. But once he dug himself in such a deep hole, and I'm not excusing it, it was stupid. But once he dug himself in such a deep hole, he had to kind of maintain this appearance of, no, everything's fine. Because he was so afraid of failing. He didn't like that he didn't have money for his workers. That's why he was constantly on Sydney of, bring your friends, give me some bank money. Like he was trying to get the money. He didn't like the position he was in, though it didn't stop him from working. He kind of was, his idea, I think, was, well, if we can just get this done, then we'll have income and we can pay the workers. If we can just get this done, which is way overshooting it, way overestimating himself. He is not that cavalier with money anymore. He has learned the bulk of his lessons, certainly after that building burned down and there was no insurance. He has learned by Sydney's sacrifice the bulk of this lesson. The gambling thing, what I loved about seeing this scene was we see this side of Tom that he did not want to do it. But again, this guy was bringing an income for the town. So he's warring with, okay, there's this steady income, or he thinks there's a steady income coming in because he thinks they're paying their bills. So he has this war of, do I fight this income, or do I dig myself in a hole? Do I make this okay for the town, or do I make it bad for me, kind of thing? So he doesn't want to gamble, but Lennox manipulates him into doing it. And he doesn't want to.
And it's like Arthur says to him at the time, that's what he does. It's strategy. That's exactly. But the thing about Tom is he's manipulable. He is influenceable. He's influenced in season 1 to go further than he should have in terms of building the town, more in terms of the money he had and what he chose to do. He was influenceable in the second season when he gambled, but fortunately he came around and corrected it. And was influenceable in the third season by the expanded view of the hotel and where it was going to be. Which again, he corrected by the end. In each season, he made things right.
He did.
In the end.
And in season 3, as it came to the hotel, he asked Mary, and he did want to do what she did, but Tom and Mary were not the ones funding this project. Rowley Price was the one funding it, and he didn't want it that way. So I think with Tom, I think he is influenceable, but I think it's because he thinks, I don't think this is a good idea. I think it's a bad idea, but you are the one with the money. How can I say no to the one with the money? I think it's a bad idea. I don't want to do it, but I don't have another choice.
But he finally did stop it.
He did, yes.
Which was good. Yeah, I mean, I say he did what was right. Well, in season 1, he didn't exactly do what he did what was right with Sydney's help. In that he paid his workers, but and
I think
ultimately
Sydney paid his
Sydney
workers.
paid for his bad decisions.
Yes.
Is what happened. Yeah, which was
And
the heart.
I think and honestly, I'm glad Mary found out first that he wasn't paying his workers, because I think if it was just Sydney paying for it, it wouldn't have had the same effect as Mary being as mad as she was at him and telling him to go.
Right.
I think
Yeah,
that
that's right.
was what was like, that was the flying moment to him of what have I done, is when he thought he was about to lose his family.
Who should we talk about next? Do you want to talk about
Let's-
Edward or
Well,
Lady Denham?
Since we're on the Parkers, let's finish up Arthur. We talked a little
Oh,
about
okay,
Arthur.
right. I
let's do Arthur.
taught a little bit about him, but mostly how he helped influence Tom for the right reasons, to the right, in the right way.
Yeah. And we see him in season 1 as this silly kind of buffoony character, which
Right.
I mean, I loved him because my favorite line of Arthur's in season 1 is, "Shall I make us some toast?" And
Yeah.
he's got the toast and he's got the wine, and that whole speech he gives to Charlotte when they first appear in Diana and Arthur's seaside home. And he's talking about how, I have a glass of wine every day. It helps the constitution. But he's this silly kind of buffoon of a character. And even in the end ball in season 1, where he's dancing with Georgiana, he just kind of falls to the ground, and Diana says, "That's enough." So that's who he is. But we can see in season 2, he is largely the way he is because of Diana. He is a hypochondriac and I have theories about that, but I mean, they're just theories. I think their parents died an ugly death, and she's very afraid that her little brother is going to get sick. So she has taken over mothering him and smothering him and making sure he doesn't have all these things. And I think she became a hypochondriac because of that. But he starts to become more of himself. He's still silly, goofy Arthur.
Right.
But he's not buffoonery in season 2.
Right. And I'm sure they changed the character largely because of the fact that Diana wasn't there.
Yeah, Cassandra Roach was returning.
And they've gotten a little further afield of the script.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, of the script, the segment they had of Jane Austen's story. And in fact, it says in the credits on IBDM that, IMDb, why can't I remember those initials? It says that the first season was adapted, and the second and third season were inspired by her book, with the part she wrote.
Yeah, because there was nothing left to work off of.
Right. And so who knows what would have happened with that character had the actress that played Diana been able to be part of seasons 2 and 3.
Yeah.
Life happens, and she wasn't able to. So
yeah, and I'm glad they didn't remove it all the way. Like even in season 2 with the sugar boycott, when he's sitting there to tea with Georgiana, and he was like, "Well, can I just have a little nibble?" Or he said something along those lines. So he still maintains, and even when Charles Lockhart is drawing him on the beach, and he wakes up and he sees him there, like he still maintains his silliness. He's still ever Arthur, but his arc becomes more substantial. Again, just like Georgiana, he becomes more of a substantial character. He's got more substance to him, more body to him as he goes, because he, apart from Diana, for the first time is figuring out who he is. And I don't think he's ever been allowed to do that before.
Right. I just wish they had built the theater.
Yes, that was a brilliant idea.
It was, yeah, but it didn't happen, at least in the episodes we got to see. So
I was going to say, not yet it didn't, but Sanditon might still exist. So
right.
They're building it now.
Yeah. Do anything else you want to say about Arthur?
Mm-mm.
So I think we should then let's talk about Lady Denham. Yeah, she was the one who appeared the next most of all these characters. And it was interesting because she was, very self-focused and very cranky in the first season,
very self-righteous.
Yeah, very self-righteous, and these people are just fawning at me to get my money, and they were all around her, and then when you move to season 2, she's complaining. Well, Esther's back, and she is, and of course then Clara comes back, and then she has figured out even more about who Sir Edward Denham really is.
Yeah.
And she is trying to put her foot down, but the way he managed to get himself back in there and sort of in her good graces was very manipulative.
Yep.
And it was a matter of, and here's Esther, and it takes her a while to really understand what's going on with Esther.
Mm-hmm.
And
in fact, she doesn't get it until Clara discloses
exactly to the very end of season 2. Yeah, when all that's laid out before her, because Edward is so good at manipulating people and running around behind his back, paying one of his workmen to give him the letters and all of that stuff. So it was, and then Lady Denham has I think one of the most interesting periods for her, episodes for her, was in season 3, when this person we heard about in season 1, when she was talking to Esther, appears as the investor in this hotel.
Mm-hmm.
And she kind of rekindles that love, as it were.
Yeah. Or at least interest.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's not the kind of love she had when she was a young lady.
Because I don't think she's interested in that anymore.
No, but she loves the companionship.
Exactly.
And the fact there's somebody her age she could dance with and eat with, which was his point. And so the way they concluded it was good, that they were going to build a smaller hotel. He'd come to visit every few months, and they could still be their separate selves.
Yeah. And I think that altered her character, I think, more than other things did. I think because she then began to soften at remembering what first love was like, remembering what being devoted to someone was like, remembering what being in love with someone was like in general. And in season 1, I think we see her. I like that you point out that people were fawning over her, but I think she felt like they should be.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
This is my town. I have the money. You bow before me or I withhold.
But she was rude.
Yes.
Like, so rude. And she wasn't she did change. I mean, she was still rude in season 2, like when they were sitting in the gazebo. Yeah, she was still very rude. But by season 3, we didn't see her acting like that at any of the dinners. Or in fact, she went so far as to compliment Tom on the job he was doing with the town.
Yeah. And I think part of that too was she longed for someone to match her in wits, match her in friendship, match her in relationship. And Charlotte would bring that out in her. That scene where she goes over there to apologize and she says, "I'm sure Tom sent you," in season 1. And she says, "No, you asked for," and then there's another part in that same scene where she says, "You asked for my opinion."
Right.
And Lady Denham's like, "You're right." And she appreciated that in Charlotte. So that kind of started to alter her little by little by little. It broke away the edge there. But I think that once she started to see people want a relationship with her, and I think the other aspect of her still being kind of rude in season 2 was, I'm old. I've paid my dues and I can just say whatever I think now, because who do I have to impress? I have I have the money. I have the title. I have the house. I have all the things I need. I don't need any of you people to impress. I don't need any of you people to validate me or give me things. So I'm just going to say what I think. And
not to mention that she could get all of her anger and frustration out on Edward.
Yes. And I think my favorite defining moment for Lady Denham was one of the final scenes with her in season 2, when she's sitting in that bench in her garden and Edward comes walking up. And it was sad that she did not deliver on this in season 3, where he said, "I figured helping you was better than the debtor's prison." And she said, "We'll see."
Yeah.
I wanted her, because I think that right there is who Lady Denham is. She is concerned with what is right and what is good and what is moral. She has different ways of going about it, but she is concerned about that.
Of it is
yes,
different.
Exactly. But I mean, whatever did was pretty amoral. I mean, what he did was pretty awful and terrible. And even with when Claire and Edward slept on her dining room floor, she called them parasites, people parasites. That was sinful. And when Clara came home pregnant, that was something that cast a pallor on the Denham name. So she was angry about it. So that's what her concern is. She's concerned about not tarnishing her image necessarily, but she doesn't think that she can tarnish it. And when Raleigh comes in, he softens her to a degree that people actually see her as a friend rather than an overlord.
Right. And the other thing she does is she's very concerned when he runs off with Augusta, you know, the
Yes.
Colburn, I forget what her last name was, but anyway,
Markham.
thank you. The Markham, Miss Markham. Yeah, my favorite scene is when, well, I don't know if it's my favorite thing. The scene where she explains to him that he's going to be a vicar, you know,
Yep.
a pastor, and the look on his face. And it's, you know, there's, oh, I know my favorite scene of Lady Denham's, I think for the whole series. My favorite scene is when she's trying to run away from Raleigh in Mary and Tom
Yep.
Parker's house. That is hilarious. Annie Reed that was just right up her alley.
I agree.
And Mary's, I've never seen her move so fast.
I like that the little spin move that she does is my favorite.
Right. Yeah.
I do like the luncheon that they have when they're discussing Edward and Clara's wedding, and Reverend Hankins is telling her all the things that he'll need about the hymns and the people. She's like, oh, no one is in need of 30 minutes of your sermon. We don't need all those hymns.
Well, she has hundreds of wonderful lines, but as far as the visual comedy of that scene, you know, was just awesome.
Yeah. And what I like about how they wrote this is these characters remain ever themselves, but we still see them grow. Annie Reed always has bite to her. Well, Lady Denham always has bite to her. But we, again, just like with Charlotte, with Tom, with Georgiana, we see her evolve. So she grows and she becomes a better, well-rounded character, but she is ever Lady Denham.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. She is who she is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we have to get into Sir Edward Denham. Yeah. The one who almost redeemed himself in the third season, but he had so much to make up for. I mean, just the way he acted in every season, how he was really always just out for himself, no matter what he told Esther.
Yep.
Or Augusta. Mm-hmm. No matter what he told them, he was really after what he wanted.
Yeah.
And he didn't handle not getting what he wanted very well at all.
No.
But as bad as he was in season 1, he was 100 times worse in season 2.
Yeah.
He did not. We kept saying, "Oh, please." I can just imagine that Jack Fox was laughing when we're all saying, "We hope you are going to be a better character." Yeah. And if he'd seen the script, he knew better.
Yeah. But in season 1, he's more conniving. He's more devious and duplicitous. But in season 2, he is just 100% vengeful. That's the only thing on his mind is he doesn't care. I mean, he never truly cared who he hurt, but he still, at least with Esther, he tried to put up a front because he needed to keep her in his pocket always. Especially if she was going to marry, I almost called him Bingley, Babington. But especially because once that was in motion, that's another source of income for him. So he at least put up a front with Esther at first in the first season so he could keep her in his pocket. But in season 2, he truly cared about absolutely no one, to the degree that it was almost like he didn't have a soul. So he became like this epitome of revenge and vengeance, but not like vengeance that's earned. It was just vengeance for vengeance sake of, I am owed this now. You took it. I want it. I get it. That's who he was in season 2. But in season 3, he tried to have that same attitude. He tried to find a workaround. But again, I think it was Augusta that he's never going to be completely redeemed, but she did redeem him a little bit because I think she caught him off guard. I think he was prepared to use, abuse, and throw her away, but that he was caught off guard by actually feeling something for her. I know I've called it love in the past, but when I say that, I mean love in the only way Edward is capable of love, which is not real love.
He is definitely the worst. You know, the other thing that he did that was good, besides sort of going ahead and leaving her and not putting her in a worse position, and that was what he did for Lady Denham when she just couldn't marry Rowley. I mean, that was, you know, he showed some kindness.
Absolutely.
Not necessarily love, but kindness. which was a big step for him.
It was care. He
Yeah.
showed her care. The way he handled it was better than Reverend Hankins handled it. He's even the one who spoke to the congregation. Reverend Hankins couldn't even handle that. But Lady Denham pointed it out to him of, you have changed, whether you want to believe it, because he was saying, I haven't changed really. And she's like, well, no, you did this for me and you didn't have to, but you chose to do it. So I think that he will ever be Edward. I don't think he will ever be fully redeemed, but I don't think he's going to be soulless anymore. I think he will still be duplicitous and take advantage of people and always looking for the next scheme. But I don't think he will be as hateful or vengeful anymore. Right.
So on a more positive note, the other thing I want to do, because we have different characters that were involved, but I want to talk about the men who were Rose's love interests.
Yes.
So of course we start with Sidney, and he, thanks to the pandemic, died off.
COVID killed him. Not his fault.
COVID killed him in Antigua, and
it was all over the world.
Yeah. I think they did him justice with the story. We said it at the time that it was better for them to kill off the character than to just replace the actor. And I definitely think that was the case.
And they were better killing him off than saying, well, he's still married to Eliza and giving the entire fandom hope that eventually he'll come back and redeem Charlotte.
Right. That would have been wrong, especially for Ben Lloyd Hughes's character, Alexander Colburn.
Their only option was death.
Right. So we see her meet him, and of course he is not very much like Sidney. He's much more of an introvert.
Yep.
But at the same time, she meets Colonel Lennox, who is definitely an extrovert and is torn. I don't think torn that much between them, but she was checking them both out because they were both checking her out. One was sort of through a professional relationship, and the other one was a military man who was interested in her. And I think he was really impressed by her, more than anything. Lennox was impressed by Charlotte because he just never, as he said, he'd never met anyone quite like her, because she did speak her mind, and she wasn't as easily swayed as a lot of people, certainly as Tom Parker.
Yeah.
And then finally she figures out who it is she likes in that situation. And when Lennox is revealed to be who he is, what his character really is, love the actor, but who his character really is. And then we see her, to our shock at the end of season 2, we find out she's marrying Ralph, who we've just barely seen. And then we meet him more in season 3 and see her relationship with Colburn change and grow.
Yeah.
So she's the constant, but then the men are not. That change.
Well, she's not really constant, at least not as it pertains to Ralph, because in the beginning of season 2, when Allison and her are at Trafalgar House, she is talking about how she'll never marry Ralph. She's not interested, doesn't want him at all. And by the end of season 2, she's engaged to him.
Which is exactly why we're shocked.
Yeah, exactly.
She's marrying him. If she hadn't said that, we would have been sort of in the dark and thinking, well, maybe she really does love him. But we can just tell from the look on her face that that's not really the case,
Yeah. And it's another reaction that she has out of grief. Like after Sydney's grief, her reaction was, I'm never going to marry. I'm going to be a governess. After her heartbreak with Colburn, it's, well, I'm going to marry, but I'm going to marry someone who I'm not in love with and who will never break my heart because I don't love him.
Well, and because my parents want me to do it. Right.
But I don't think they would have been able to convince her had that not been her thought.
Oh, right. Yeah. No, I would agree with you. But fortunately for us, she came back to Sanditon and got connected, with Colburn, and we had some great scenes out of that. And of course, Colburn matured and he became less a recluse, and thanks to Charlotte and his children, he went out into society more, and then spent that time in Bath, and obviously he couldn't just hide there.
Yeah. And I don't think he wanted to anymore.
Right. Yeah.
I think that he was reclusive because of how much he hated himself and how much he blamed himself for Lucy. And he did hold himself responsible for her. And he did think, I'm not good enough for anyone. Why am I going to be put out there for anyone when I'm not even fit to do anything? With Lennox, I think that's the one character that you and I kind of disagree on. I don't think he was impressed by her. I think he was curious. I think he was interested. I think he thought she could be fun. And I don't think that Charlotte was ever really confused about if she preferred Lennox over Colburn. I think she was confused over whether or not she preferred Colburn at all.
Any of them. Yeah.
Yeah. But with Lennox, I don't think she was ever romantically inclined towards him. And when he proposed that to her at the ball at the top of the stairway, she was like, no. And he basically said, you've been leading me on. But Charlotte never felt that way about him. And so I think he just expected, you know what? I get what I want because I'm a powerful man. I'm a respected man. I say jump, you say how high, I think was his idea. And I think I'm pulling that from how he is with Tom, how he is with Arthur, how he is. The only redeemable thing he did was when he ripped the lapels off of Edward's soldier uniform.
Right.
But even that wasn't because it was necessary. It was because he was angry that he had been hoodwinked.
Oh,
That's what it was. It wasn't even because you're not fit. It was because one was pulled over on the strategic man that no one dared to pull anything over on. And so I actually think that he is a villain, not to Edward's standard.
Oh yeah, and I think so too when we were going over the season. So yeah, I see what you're saying about Lennox.
And Colburn, and Colburn too. I think that he went from understanding that it wasn't all his fault, understanding that he is able to be loved, he is lovable, he is worthy of that. And once he could recognize that about himself, then he could pour back into his girls. And that's why he took them to the bath. And even when he came back in season 3, he was impassioned by what impassioned Mary of saving the town. He began to actually pour out into people again. He was reclusive because he didn't think he deserved anything. So he had nothing to pour out. But once he realized he is lovable, he did have something to pour out into people. And so we did see that evolution in him. And
I think having his brother there was really good for him too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think it's way better that when he took the girls, he went to Bath than if he had gone to London.
Yes.
His real hurt was in London. So it was good that they didn't go to London, that they went to Bath. So, different, a little society, but it's slightly different kind of society.
Less invasive, less activity. Now I know that there are other characters that are on the show, but a lot of them are one season. I know Lennox was one season, but we're going to quickly move on into story arcs. There's a few, and we're going to give it our rating, and we're going to give our rating. And so we're just going to, this part is not going to take that long because we've done in depth of all the things we can about Sanditon. So as far as story arcs, did you have a favorite one? There were so many to choose from.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty hard to choose just one.
Well, okay. How about this? What is the one you think changed the most, like that grew the most, that had the biggest arc? Maybe that's not an easier question, is it?
No, it's not. Because I relate him so much to the characters.
Yes.
So obviously, I think the relationships between the Parkers and Charlotte and Georgiana, that grouping, that interaction was the main focus for me. And it was the biggest part of the story.
Yeah.
The others were supporting and important, don't get me wrong, but I mean, of course it would have been, and Charlotte's loves, sorry, I keep thinking Rose.
That's right. We all know
all of her, especially Sydney and Colburn, those two. So that is, and I loved what happened with those stories. I mean, obviously, I didn't love what happened at the end of season 1.
Yeah,
but We know that. Had that not happened, though, we may never have gotten seasons 2 and 3.
Exactly. Yep. So I think, is it the outcome I wanted for the show as I began watching season 1? No, it's obviously not. It's not what any of us wanted at the beginning of season 1. But that being said, I am satisfied with what they did to fix it, because it wasn't in their control to give us what we all wanted, to even give us what the writers originally wanted. That the writers wanted what we wanted, but it was outside of their control, and people are allowed to take a step back and step away. So I appreciate what they did. And I think there were some storylines that I was like, I don't really care about this a whole lot, but those were side storylines. They were small storylines. I think Lennox had to be there for the militia, but I just think, like, did that really benefit a whole lot? Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. Shedland and Colburn, I think they could have done some things differently, but overall, on the whole, I think that they did this well. I think that the stories that we have complained about of, well, did this have to be in there? Did this person have to do this? We could have spent more time on this. What they did, though it may have seemed insignificant, though it may have seemed like we didn't need these new characters, we didn't need these new people, they were all there to further one of our main storylines. So it did intertwine nicely. It intertwined the way it needed to get the characters where they needed to be in the end, whether or not we thought it was frivolous or needless.
Right. Yeah, and they were fun. I mean, the stories were fun. The more minor characters were fun. The Denhams, that was a big storyline throughout. And obviously Georgiana connected with all the other stories, and so and then there were lots of minor characters, but I got to throw out how much I loved the second season with Charlotte's sister and her love story.
Declan.
So that
Captain
was awesome.
Fraser.
Yeah, Captain Fraser, and and that was one where he was definitely the hero, and the one she thought she was going to like turned out to be a villain because he was a liar.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I kind of saw him as like a Colonel Fitzwilliam sort of character. Colonel Fitzwilliam mixed with Darcy is kind of how I saw him. Or even Alan Rickman's character in Sense and Sensibility.
Yeah, I know who you mean. Well, he turns out to be
good guy.
Yeah, definitely.
He marries Marianne. So that's kind of who Declan was a mix between. I think that my favorite, although obviously we like what happened with Charlotte, that's our girl, we want her to get it. My favorite relationship was still Babington and Esther. Overall, through the whole thing. I thought he was the best man in the show.
But unfortunately, he was only in the first season.
Yes.
He is one of the reasons why the first season will always be my favorite.
Yep.
I mean, their relationship, their, happy ending that turned a little unhappy, but just because she was manipulated in the second season. And Sydney and the boys, that part of it. But, it is, and all the things they did at Sanditon were fun.
Yes, I agree. But Babington, just the way he cared for Esther, even when she was mad at him, rejecting him, he still returned again and again and again and again. And that line that he says when she's packing up her house, and he said that you will never have to be his victim again. You will never be subject to him again. I will not let it. Like, there is no better man than Babington.
Unfortunately, she was his victim again.
Because he wasn't there.
Clara came to the rescue this time.
Yes. So I think that's my favorite relationship is Babington and Esther. Esther is my favorite girl too. Babington and Esther, they're my favorite characters. Just because I like her spunk. I like her bite. I love all the other, I'm not saying I don't like the other characters. It's the same reason why we like Lydia so much, right? Because she's got those witty one-liners that are hilarious. But Esther has that bite that I like to a character.
Right. Yep. She's awesome.
Did you have a favorite relationship or favorite characters?
I always liked Sydney and Charlotte.
Yeah. I did love that relationship.
And there's still, I don't think I'll ever enjoy dance as much as that London Ball. They call it the Golden Dance. And it was just so good. I mean, there's lots of good dancing and period pieces, but that was exceptional.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like how they honed in on their faces, and they honed in on their touches, and they honed in on their expression. It was beautifully done. Plus all the gold. It was beautiful. I loved it. I agree. I think that's my favorite ball scene, even more than the Colburn ones, because I don't think they didn't hyper focus on an entire dance with Colburn and Charlotte the way they did with Sydney and Charlotte.
No.
So I think that's got to be my favorite ball scene.
Yep.
Season 1 is going to remain my favorite because it's got my people in it. So, but I did love the other 2 seasons, obviously.
And we're glad we got them.
Yes, absolutely. So I think I would go season 1, season 3, season 2 in order from favorite to least.
I would probably agree with that. Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with any. I love all of them, but I think it would be my order. I think overall the grade I would give Sanditon, I would give it an A. And the only reason that's not higher is because it wasn't the ending that we wanted, even though that was out of their control completely.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, they fought for us.
The world pandemic and a delay and everything else. So
that team fought for the fandom. They did.
Yeah.
Every inch of the way they fought for the fandom. And I don't think there is a more appreciative group of people and a more kind group of people than the people who put this on for us. Yeah, it made them money. Yeah, it got them a job, but they did it because we were so adamant that we were desperate for more. And so they did it. When they lost their main character, when they lost their entire plot, they lost their entire storyline, they reworked it for us to still make us happy and give us what we needed.
Yep.
I don't think you can go wrong with it. So if you're just tuning in, this is your first time you're coming across our YouTube page, maybe, or you're cruising Spotify and you just hear this, we are talking about the show Sanditon. It's on PBS Masterpiece, which you can currently get on as an add-on on Amazon. Can you also just buy it on its own? Streaming on its own?
You can buy a CD, a DVD, I mean, of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I know that some other countries can't get the DVD or can't get it yet, or they're different than the US version. There's always some quirk to it. But check it out on there. All 3 seasons are out now. Spoiler alert, it's different. The seasons are different. We don't have all the same cast from season 1 to season 2 and 3, but it's fantastic. It's great. I will return to Sanditon again and again and again and again.
Yes. But the most of the main characters are through all the whole 3 seasons.
Yes. It's just 3 characters that don't come back, and 2 of them are, one of them is the main character, 2 of them are side characters.
Right.
Really. So next week you are getting a review of the 1995 Pride and Prejudice. It's the 5-hour long version. So again, if you have not watched that, get watching it. It's on Peacock, it's on Hulu, it's on Amazon Prime. I own it on Amazon Prime, so that's where I watch it, because then I don't have to watch the commercials. You can rent it or buy it on Amazon Prime, but I believe on Peacock, if you stream, it's free. And you said it's on Hulu too, right?
I think it is on Hulu.
Yeah. And so if you're already streaming,
I know it's on BritBox.
Yeah, and BritBox. Yep, that's right. And so get that watched where that's coming up for you. And then we're probably going to split that into 2 parts. And then we're going to compare the 2005 and 1995 version. And then our final episode before our Christmas break is going to air on December 3rd. We need your holiday fan fiction of Sanditon. If you have some Jane Austen fan fiction you would like us to review, we'll review that too. We prefer to do Sanditon, but if we don't, send in what you got. That's holiday, that's Jane Austen or Sanditon, and we'll decide what we can and can't go with. But we'd love to read what you got, even if it's a short little essay. The shorter it is, the more we can get into an episode. So if it's like a 1 chapter, 2,000 word, because a lot of times these fan fiction websites, they have like these challenges, holiday challenges, and I know that they're usually like no more than 1,500 words or whatever. So even if that's all it is, send it our way. We want to review it. We want to get it out there. We want to get your name out there and get other people reading your stuff. So send that in, and that's what we've got coming up for you. So we will see you real soon. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Are you craving more TSC content? Head on over to our social media accounts. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and our Facebook group, the Sanditon Chronicles Sanditon Family Fan Club. Also, check out our website, thesanditonchronicles.com. Of course, we want to hear from you. We want to know what you want to hear and what your thoughts are. Email us at the.sanditonchronicles@gmail.com. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Tune in every week for new episodes.